mind control.
It's just like nothing that I've ever experienced.
Microchips controlling our thoughts.
You've actually found these chips in
You've come across them in people before.
who don't know how they got there.
Voices projected into our heads.
Nope. It really makes you wonder what else is possible.
Fantasy or conspiracy?
Oh, I don't know how I feel about this at all.
My name is Pat Spain. I'm a biologist, but when I'm not in the lab, I seek out adventure. I've always admired my great-uncle Charles Fort. He spent a lifetime exploring bizarre stories and evidence.
Wow, seriously?
That did not make sense scientifically.
No way. That's very strange.
What thrills me
I like when food comes with a warning.
is discovering a world that I don't know.
Whoa, yeah.
We now have evidence that changes history. This is Legend Hunter. Do you sometimes feel like someone's controlling the world around us? Like your own thoughts and actions aren't really your own? You ever get the feeling like you're being watched? Hey, we all have those thoughts occasionally, but what if it's true?
New research shows that 50% of Americans believe in at least one conspiracy theory, and 30% believe that their minds are being controlled by outside forces. That's huge.
Conspiracy theories have always fascinated me. I'm willing to believe anything, but only if there's evidence to back it up. I'm in Chicago, known for deep dish pizza, a green river on St. Paddy's Day, and the highest number of movable bridges in the world. But what you may not know is that this is an epicenter in the United States for targeted individuals. Targeted individuals are people convinced they are being monitored, followed, or manipulated by unknown forces. Some believe they're being harassed with electronic rays. Others that they're having voices and sounds transmitted into their heads. In the US, there are believed to be thousands of such individuals, but there have also been reports of people being targeted as far away as Russia, China, and Western Australia. I want to find out if there's any truth in these reports. Is technology so advanced that something or someone can control our minds? Or is it just the stuff of science fiction?
On this nondescript corner outside of Chicago and around this busy intersection is one of the world's leading suppliers of protective equipment for people who identify as targeted individuals.
Ed Lazinski is not a targeted individual.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for talking to me today.
Of course.
But thousands of them come through his doors seeking help.
So I understand that this is one of the leading shops for targeted individuals to contact.
That is the reputation that we have, yeah. I mean, you know, you'd have to have no heart to not want to reach out and help them as best you can.
Many of Ed's customers believe they've had microchips covertly implanted inside their bodies.
So you've come across people who have had chips in them?
Yeah, a lot of people call us thinking they may have an RFID chip or some kind of anomaly within them.
RFID?
Yeah, it's basically a radio frequency identification chip.
Okay.
And we've used them for years, you know, to tag animals in the wild that we were studying and things like that.
But you have found them?
We have.
You've actually found these chips in
You've come across them in people before, yeah.
who don't know how they got there.
RFID chips can identify an individual. Some people even believe they can track their whereabouts. Ed thinks targeted individuals are guinea pigs in some sort of undercover experiment.
People have asked me again, you know, why is this hopping up so much now? The only answer that I absolutely have for them is that what we're looking at is a beta test.
A beta test?
I have no doubt of it. At this point, if it was military before, which, I mean, we're pretty sure it was, at this point it's in the hands of private contractors. That I have no doubt.
Ed offers a full-body scanning service to see if people have been chipped. I'm pretty sure I haven't, but I guess you can never be sure.
The first method that I almost always use is metal detection.
Okay.
A lot of people complain about primarily their earlobes, the jawline, or in the fatty tissue of their back or their chest, generally speaking.
Ed says he's also found chips embedded underneath people's scalps, in their noses, elbows, and feet. I'm in the clear so far, but some of the latest microchips Ed has found in people don't contain metal. To find those, he uses a different technique.
Another way is with the triple-axis radio frequency meter and the magnetic field meter.
These gadgets will pick up any electronic signal or magnetic field coming from my body.
Okay, now see that right there? Contamination. The Z-axis is picking up the Wi-Fi from across the street.
Oh, it's pointing right at, yeah.
Which is why we got that massive spike.
A false alarm. I'm relieved to know I'm not being secretly monitored. The number of cases being reported is clearly rising, but to figure out what's behind these attacks, I need to hear from the victims. Most targeted individuals are wary about meeting in person, but I've persuaded a few to talk to me via the safety of a video call. They're keen to tell their stories. How exactly have you been targeted?
I've actually found a round landing device on my ceiling light, and a private investigator told me that this is probably used for audio recording.
Aerial harassment, very low-flying helicopters. I know this sounds bizarre.
My activities were being monitored. Their primary goal is to isolate a target.
Targeted individuals often feel their thoughts and behavior are being influenced against their will.
I know to the average person this sounds like, well, this guy is maybe off the rails a little bit. As a scientist, this is not the reality that I recognize.
I also have 11 sensors in my body without my consent that I want them to get removed, and I'm looking for a surgeon to help remove these.
These are torture conditions.
This has clearly really had an impact on your life.
It has in ways that I will never be able to cope with.
My initial reaction is these things are really hard to hear. It's tough to speak with someone who's having this experience that's affecting their lives so much. It's terrifying. No one I spoke to had any evidence to show me. But one man claims to have captured proof of his attack on camera, and amazingly, he's agreed to meet me face to face. Dr. Matthew Arnegard has a PhD in neurobiology and has worked at some of the most reputable universities in the country. So when did you first know, without a doubt, that you were being targeted?
The harassment emerged out of interactions that I had immediately after moving into my apartment in downtown Vancouver. I was in a setting, much like where we are now, where across an alleyway there was another building. And these windows are very much like the windows that I had in my apartment. I had a solarium where I set up my office. The building across the alley was 30 meters away.
And it was an office building?
It was clearly an office. I know for a fact that it was an office.
So sort of like that one over there?
Yes, it was like that.
November 10th, 2015. Matthew is working at his laptop by the window when he spots something moving in the building across the street. Taking a closer look, he can see people slinking furtively around in the shadows, and 3 figures on a balcony looking directly at him.
And one of them started doing threatening gestures at me, like, basically, you're dead.
What do they look like?
Like just ordinary guys in their 20s.
So you mentioned that after you confronted this group of individuals, things ramped up. How so?
I came into my solarium in December of 2015, and in their kitchen area, which I could see, again, only 30 meters away, there was what looked like in my notes I called it a vortex gun.
After doing some research, Matthew later decided it was more likely to be an electromagnetic pulse generator. EMPs, as they're known, have the power to knock out all electronic devices within their range with electromagnetic energy. Matthew said the weapon was aimed directly at his apartment window. He's staring across at it, trying to figure out what it is, when he's hit.
When one of these palpable energy attacks happens, your body from head to toe feels like you're being electrocuted nearly to death. It's like someone took an electric rubber band and snapped it clean through your body.
Matthew decides to steam up his apartment.
I know that I wanted to make it hard to look into the window and get rid of this feeling of electricity in my body. So I put on pots of water, turned my shower on the hottest heat it would go, all the sinks, and then I ran out of my apartment.
Around midnight, Matthew returns and uses his phone to film what he finds.
This is the time when I was first coming back into my apartment after it was steamed up. But the steam is the only way I know to get rid of these very uncomfortable attacks. I have to go turn my shower off because I have it running full blast. It might be overflowing. Then I felt safer to go back to the window. And when I did, there was an impression in the window which was extraordinary. The MO of these harassing attacks is to use high technology and subterfuge to a level which is very sinister. This they did not count on. I have never drawn that pattern, and I showed you there are multiple traces of patterns like that. There's another one right there.
It does look like concentric rings with the line through the center and a circle.
My hand is shaking because they are trying to drive me out of this place.
What individuals or groups would be conducting this type of electronic harassment?
Okay, my personal view is that the military has been actively developing directed energy weapons. This has been going on for decades.
I'm investigating a targeted individual who claims he's being attacked by unknown forces. Matthew Arnegard says he's found an impression on one of the windows of his apartment, which proves he was attacked by some sort of high-energy gun. He thinks it could have been an electromagnetic pulse generator.
My colleague sent me a picture of this patented waveguide. It's close enough for me to get pretty excited about having now at least a running hypothesis for what caused this.
Matthew is certain there is a similarity between the patterns.
What individuals or groups would be conducting this type of electronic harassment?
Okay, my personal view is that the military has been actively developing directed energy weapons. And so I believe that the idea has come up by criminals to basically adapt these technologies, build homemade versions to weaponize them.
Matthew's story is difficult to buy into, but it's not unique to him. Thousands of other targeted individuals are saying similar things.
So it was really fascinating and a little bit disconcerting to talk to Matthew about his experiences. And it's left me wondering what I could find in known technology to give some evidence and show some of the kind of wilder claims that he was talking about. Yeah, it's really got me thinking.
The stories told by targeted individuals may sound unbelievable, but throughout history, equally outlandish tales have been dismissed at first and later turned out to be absolutely true. In the wake of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was claimed the US government was stealing dead bodies to do radioactive testing. Decades later, it emerged these claims were true. They were, in fact, measuring the effect of nuclear fallout on humans. Another conspiracy theory said the Canadian government was so paranoid about homosexuality that it developed a machine to detect if someone was gay. In the 1960s, it really did happen. But the ultimate example is a top-secret CIA operation that aimed to find ways to control people's minds. It was codenamed MK Ultra. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, the intelligence service, through MK Ultra, experimented with a whole range of tactics, from hypnosis and psychological torture to mind-altering drugs. I'm traveling 2,000 miles to San Francisco, which was at the center of an MK Ultra experiment into the effects of LSD. Recently, sensitive documents regarding this particular trial have been declassified, and investigative reporter Troy Hooper has had access to them.
And you've written this amazing article kind of uncovering new details about MK Ultra. And I was wondering if you can tell me what you found.
In the 1950s and 1960s, there was an operation called Operation Midnight Climax. They ran what looked like a brothel, but the brothel was really a front for the secret government operation. And the prostitutes would go down into North Beach, recruit Johns from the bars, bring them back to the apartment, and then these men would be dosed with LSD.
The apartment is carefully designed to avoid arousing suspicion. The John must not suspect that the prostitute is on the CIA payroll, or that, just a few feet away, on the other side of a two-way mirror, intelligence agents are watching and recording everything he does.
So Midnight Climax?
Operation Midnight Climax.
Operation Midnight Climax. God, it's amazing.
The man behind the mirror is CIA agent George Hunter White. While the John gets comfortable, the girl secretly laces his drink with LSD. Then things start to unravel for the unwitting victim.
What were they trying to figure out?
At the time, they didn't know much about LSD. They thought it could be used to train the ultimate soldier, have them carry out covert missions and have no memory of it. The other idea was that perhaps it was a truth serum and give them LSD, and then maybe they would, reveal state secrets.
That really is absolutely remarkable. You talk to these people who are targeted individuals, and as much as I want to believe them, it's really hard because the claims just sound so outrageous. And then to speak with someone like Troy, who tells you that this genuinely happened, that the US government actually targeted unwitting and just random people, just a cross-section of the US population. With this kind of experiment, to do this sort of unscientific and totally uncontrolled experimentation on them, it really makes you wonder what else is possible.
The problem I have with dismissing the claims of targeted individuals is that there is this precedent. MK Ultra was real. Operation Midnight Climax was real. And the house where it all happened is still there. Telegraph Hill is one of San Francisco's swankiest neighborhoods. It's just about the last place you would expect to find a seedy brothel.
This is Chestnut Street, where Troy tells me the MK Ultra testing went down in a house right along here, number 225. There it is. This is the actual house.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm Pat.
Pat, Caroline.
Caroline, nice to meet you.
In the 1950s, this building was divided into 5 apartments, but it's recently been converted into one big house.
This is a stunning house. During the renovations, did you find any unusual artifacts?
They'd found various wires and things within the walls when they
really
tore everything out.
It's hard to believe that, over 60 years ago, that this place was used in this bizarre US government experimenting on its own citizens. And now it's just this beautiful family home.
60 years ago, CIA agents might have stood right here, waiting for their next victim to arrive. But this house isn't the only connection this city has to MKUltra.
San Francisco has a series of islands connected by all the various bridges, and right in the center of it, Alcatraz prison. Notorious gangster Whitey Bulger was held in that prison for years, and he claims various experiments were performed on him, experiments associated with MKUltra.
Whitey Bulger says he and 18 other inmates volunteered to try mind-control drugs for the CIA in return for reduced sentences, but claimed they were deceived and described the experiment as a nightmare. The fact that MKUltra actually happened, that the government sanctioned the use of mind-control drugs, does add credibility to the claims of targeted individuals.
The more that I dig into these conspiracy theories, the murkier the waters get. MKUltra specifically has one aspect of it, it's just leaping off the page. And that's this bizarre connection between an unethical study at Harvard, a professor in the late 50s and early 60s, and Ted Kaczynski.
Ted Kaczynski, better known as the Unabomber, led a 17-year reign of terror over the United States, mailing bombs to universities and technology companies. While at Harvard, Kaczynski voluntarily took part in experiments with psychology professor Henry Murray, who was also on the payroll of the CIA. Targeted individuals say that Kaczynski was one of them.
So the conspiracy theory goes, did the CIA unwittingly create the Unabomber? Murray performed a series of bizarre experiments that utilized psychological bombardment, and I've managed to track down somebody who has a close connection to Murray. I'm going to go meet with him now.
Professor Jonathan Moreno is a huge name in medical ethics and national security, and his father was close friends with Henry Murray.
I've been kind of digging into all this research on various conspiracy theories, and one that has really stuck out is the whole linkage of Murray at Harvard and Ted Kaczynski. And I know that you have some experience and some family history with Murray, and I'd be interested to hear your take on him.
He was very interested in seeing how these young people would respond to authority. Apparently what he did was he spent quite a bit of time getting their trust, and he would ask them what they believe in, what their views are about the world, what their hopes are, and what their ideals are.
In front of a blinding spotlight, several men subjected Kaczynski to hours of psychological abuse, trying to force a breakdown.
So certainly the conspiracy-minded now say that Kaczynski's participation in this experiment is what directly led to his becoming the Unabomber. What's your take on that?
You know, I'm not a psychologist, but we can note that nearly 24 other young men did not become pathological or violent. Kaczynski said it wasn't a pleasant experience being in that particular experiment. It was embarrassing and humiliating and dispiriting for a lot of these young men. Did it trigger something? If so, it took a while for that trigger to take effect, and the truth is, we can never know the truth.
Harvard has now blocked all access to Murray's report, so the intent and results of the psychological testing may never be fully known. But mind control was clearly a top priority for the CIA in the middle of the 20th century. Targeted individuals say it still is. On their own, these claims seem far-fetched, but put them in the context of MKUltra, and suddenly I'm not so sure.
The claims that people are making in the targeted community sound outrageous, and to most people's ears, they sound impossible. Certainly outside of the realm of what we want to believe is happening, and that's partially why we discount it out of hand. Throughout history, there have been people who've made outrageous claims that were discounted by the vast majority of society, and they turned out to be telling the truth. Who am I to say that what this group of people is telling me isn't real and isn't actually happening?
two of the most common claims made are of voices being projected directly into the head of a targeted individual and of people being controlled by implanted microchips. But is this possible? Do these technologies even exist?
I'm about to meet with Emil, who is an augmented human. He has chips implanted in various places. Sort of a targeted individual's worst nightmare. And he's gonna help me separate fact from fiction behind these bio-implantations. So how many chips do you have in you?
Well, right now I have 2 products and several prototypes, so 5 at the moment. So here, I have a prototype here, and here.
Can you see them?
If I poke the bottom of my hand, I can poke it up there.
Oh, yeah.
You see that there?
Wow.
Emil is excited to show me what his chips can do.
Great thing about this is just a lock from Samsung. It's commercial, right?
Yeah.
You just buy it online. When I come home, get out of the car, got groceries or whatever, it has a touch sensor here to wake it up, so I touch it. And then right here's the reader, and I just put the implant like that. Just reads it.
I mean, it won't recognize.
No, I'm not gonna.
Nothing.
But then I can just go just like that.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm imagining having that implant means potentially a world without keys, without passwords, without having to remember any of this stuff.
Right, exactly.
Emil lets me stay to watch his next procedure to understand just how easy it is to implant a microchip.
How many of these have you installed?
I've done about 4,000 at this point.
Wow.
And we've sold tens of thousands of them. I've had one person pass out, and one person get a little nauseous after, and one person cry.
So you will do all 3 of those?
Yes. Yes, right. That is it.
It's a cool gimmick, but can chips like this control your mind?
I understand that you've been contacted by the targeted individual community, and I'd imagine that there's a fair amount of fear from their side with the technology that you're developing.
Yeah, I've had contact from people that they were claiming stuff like hearing voices or seeing things. They were basically saying the chip is affecting my brain, kind of thing. But technology's not there. Yeah. It's just not there. It's not possible. Even if it did exist, it would require like billions of government dollars and like secret labs and all this stuff. Why would they waste it on you? Who are you? Do you manage a $1 billion hedge fund? Do you run a small country? Like, what's the advantage, right?
That was really interesting technology, but it's not at all what the conspiracy theorists are talking about. I mean, these microchips are completely passive. You can't track people with them. That technology, the active transmission technology, isn't even something that we're even close to developing. This isn't like it's 10 years down the line. This is something that right now is impossible.
Microchips don't seem to be ready for the sort of jobs that the targeted community is talking about. But what about sounds and voices being projected into people's heads? For me, it's harder to believe. But if I don't believe the targeted individuals, do I believe the 24 US diplomats in Cuba who say it's just happened to them? Many targeted individuals report attacks by sonic weapons. Sonic weapons use sound waves to project voices and sounds directly into people's heads. And a story just like this has hit the headlines. Downtown Havana, Cuba, 2016. In his room at the Capri Hotel, an American diplomat is jolted awake by a piercing, high-pitched noise. When he moves to the window, the sound vanishes. Relieved, he climbs back under the covers. But as soon as his head hits the pillow, the agonizing sound strikes him again. Whatever's creating this noise seems to be focused right on his bed. And this wasn't an isolated incident. 23 other embassy officials reported similar experiences. To find out what's behind these attacks, I'm heading to Washington, D.C.
There are tons of museums in D.C., and you may never have heard of this one, but chances are they've heard of you.
In a couple hours, I'm meeting a CIA analyst who is stationed in Cuba and may have the answers. But the world's largest public collection of espionage artifacts is right here in the International Spy Museum.
The dog-do transmitter. It's effective. You're certainly not going to go around to everyone's lawn and just pick up all the piles of dog crap that you see.
The guided missile director. Dann etwa eine halbe Stunde. Cause of freedom is being challenged throughout the world today by the forces of imperialistic communism.
This is exactly why I wear such tall heels. It's really just to hide my spy gear.
Back on the subject of psi attacks, I found a way to buy a sonic weapon online. How ridiculous is that? So of course I ordered one. Let's see if it works.
Sonic weapons are kinda hard to get your hands on, which is probably a good thing. So, instructions, I don't need those. What could go wrong? Looks a little bit like a hairdryer. Oh. Yeah, I think I should probably do this outside.
This ultrasonic gun is designed to deter rodents, but it can be used against intruders too. The high-frequency sound can cause a debilitating feeling of nausea and disorientation. I want to test it, but I can't fire this thing at myself, so I've enlisted help from a buddy in the area.
Are you ready? I'm ready. Nope, 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 nope. Jesus. Yeah. It's making me nauseous. Yeah, no, I don't like this at all.
And now it's my turn.
Okay, I'm gonna go up a little bit higher. Like, feels it in your jaw. Yeah, it's definitely not directional. I hate this. It's definitely effective. It shows you that these weapons do exist, but it's not what people have been describing as this kind of targeted impact. Like, you can't hit one person in the crowd with this. You fire this and everyone feels it, even the person firing it. Still feel a little nauseous. I do not like this.
I'm in Washington, D.C. trying out an ultrasonic weapon I bought online. If it works the way targeted individuals describe, then it's possible they're telling the truth.
Are you ready? I'm ready. Jesus. Nope, 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 nope.
It's unpleasant, but it can't create a laser-like beam of sound like the reports from Cuba. And it certainly doesn't project voices into your head. So what did happen in Havana? And is the technology used on the diplomats also being used on targeted individuals?
I'm going to meet with a former CIA analyst who is stationed in Cuba. I'm sure he'll have some inside information on this story.
Fulton Armstrong was formerly the senior U.S. intelligence analyst for Latin America, and he was the Cuba lead on the National Security Council. I admit, I'm a little intimidated.
You were stationed in Cuba for a number of years.
For several years, yeah. 1988, 89, and 91.
The symptoms in these alleged sonic attacks seem so kind of out there that it's hard to really explain them away. I mean, this extremely localized sound, like just in one part of the bed.
The sonic attacks is a phrase that most of us don't like because it's neither sonic nor demonstrated to be attacks. No scientist in and out of the United States government or any government that's taken a look at the evidence that say that a weapon of this sort exists that makes sound that causes the sorts of symptoms reported by by the people that are having these problems.
And that's all that's reported in the media. That's all that you hear about is sonic attacks in Cuba.
The fact is that in the Cuban service doesn't know such technology exists. It doesn't exist. How could a rogue group of an organization have a technology that the organization itself doesn't even know exists?
Fulton has it all figured out, and the answer is no. That's easy for him to say, but I think there could be more.
Now, aren't there crowd control sonic weapons where, the law enforcement would be able to project this sound wave that knocks people to the ground?
There are, and they're huge. They wouldn't fit in this room. And they're loud. Everybody knows what's going on. It just doesn't hold together. What Martian gun could cause these sorts of symptoms?
What indeed?
To get a little bit conspiracy theorist mindset on this, if we know about the weapons where it takes up the entire room, is that technology in an advanced state in a weapon that we don't know about?
In theory, yes, you could. But there's a lot of ifs in what you just said.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of ifs. If such a thing existed, if it could be weaponized, if it could be miniaturized, if it could be targeted, if it could be mobilized, if there were an actor, if there were a motive, if there were a place, if there were a time, if all those ifs are satisfied, then yes, your theory works. We analysts, by training, are told the sexier the theory, the less that you should fall in love with it.
That makes a lot of sense.
That one's too easy to fall in love with.
Fulton believes that the pressure of being a US government official in a place like Cuba can cause your mind to play tricks on you. Having not been to Havana, I'm willing to give Fulton some benefit of the doubt. But in my experience, where there's smoke, there's fire. Even mass hysteria has a cause. Why would 24 diplomats suddenly be convinced their minds were under attack? There's a potentially more promising piece of advanced technology I want to check out. A scientist claims to have a device which can put voices in your head.
Targeted individuals describe a phenomenon that they call V2K, or voice to skull. They describe hearing voices in their head that no one around them seems to be aware of.
Dr. Joe Pompey says he has invented a device which will make me hear things that someone standing next to me can't hear.
Right next to the river, I'm going to ask you to take a walk all the way down as far as you like.
All right, I'll head down there.
Let's try it.
I mean, I have to shout to be able to hear you now.
Right. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, here we go.
It sounds like they're right. Oh my God. It sounds like there's someone whispering right in my ear.
I'm investigating whether it's possible that outside forces are accessing people's thoughts. And I'm testing out a gadget that claims to be able to project voices into people's heads.
It sounds like they're right. Oh my God. It sounds like there's someone whispering right in my ear, and it sounds crystal clear. I mean, it's so bizarre. You can't tell what direction it's coming from. It really sounds like someone's right over your, just right there, whispering in your ear.
So if I turn up my microphone, it should be able to pick up what I'm hearing.
Hey you. We saw what you did yesterday. Just be aware that we're keeping an eye on you.
Oh, I don't know how I feel about this at all. I'm gonna try to go back further. Still just as clear.
Just be aware that we're keeping an eye on you.
Wow. I mean, if I'm here, it sounds like it's right there. But if I go off the path a little ways, gone. Total silence. Nothing at all right here. Wow. Yeah. No, there's something very, very strange about this, and I really like it.
Just be aware that we're keeping an eye on you.
It's really, really remarkable. I mean, this is exactly the phenomena that some of the targeted individuals are describing. The thing is,
we saw what
Wow, it's really disconcerting to have it in your ear. Joe, that's amazing.
Glad you like it.
It's so wild. That is very disconcerting. How does this work? How can it do this?
Well, instead of making sound directly, what the audio spotlight does is it makes sound indirectly using a beam of ultrasound. And the ultrasound is very, very small wavelengths, so it naturally forms a nice tight beam. That ultrasound turns into audio as it travels. So the sound you hear is literally made in air and not by the speaker.
It's just like nothing that I've ever experienced.
Yeah, there's no natural sound that behaves in this way. You know, the audio spotlight is unique physics, different than any other sound source in the world, so your brain doesn't really know what to make of it.
Yeah, and it's probably playing right now, and I'd have absolutely no idea.
It is, at the same volume.
If you pointed it up at me?
Did yesterday.
Oh, no. No, it's... I mean, just hanging out on this beautiful Sunday, like looking at the river, and then all of a sudden there's someone whispering in your ear, and you look around and there's no one there.
Back in the lab, Joe admits that his invention does have its limitations.
There's a lot of people who believe that they have some type of sound projected directly into their head, and they're the only ones who can hear it. Could this tech be used for that?
You can certainly send sound to somebody and send them a message and talk to them privately without other people hearing, but you can't do it through solid surfaces like windows or roofs or walls. Oh. Sound waves don't penetrate those surfaces at all.
So not even through glass?
Not even through glass. So if you're experiencing something like this inside a building, it can't be from our technology unless it happens to be in the same room with you, and then it's very difficult to conceal.
So this certainly wasn't what caused the crisis in Cuba, but this technology is extraordinary, and it could definitely be used to create a sensation of voices in your head.
I mean, that is exactly what the targeted individual community is describing, is hearing these voices in their head and not being able to discern where it's coming from. The only real problem is that it has to be out in the open. I think it would be pretty obvious if someone was doing this to you.
The fact that this technology exists makes you wonder what else could be out there, hidden from the public. It's easy to dismiss outlandish claims. But if I take a scientific approach, I have to admit some of the technology is available. And there is history. Crazy things have happened before. But are people's minds actually being controlled today? I don't think I believe the conspiracy theorists just yet. But is that thought my own?